everyone, welcome to another video, and I am really excited to show you my third stamp set, which is called Prismatic Watercolors. So this stamp set, the new one, as well as my previous two, this is the first one, the original, the one that started everything. This is Watercolor Workbook, and the second one, Sketchbook Essentials. These are all available now in my shop. They ship from the US. They are made in the US and they ship from the US. And yeah, so if you're in the US, you will get yours, you know, within a week, most probably. And then if you're in the rest of the world, it might take longer, you know, depending on post and stuff. But they're all available. Quantities are limited. I did order more from the new stamp set, but from this is the third restock that I'm doing. And it's not that I like to have these items sold out, not at all. I want everyone who wants them to be able to get them. The issue is that if they sit in the warehouse, I pay like a storing fee, which I would like to avoid. Like, I don't want to have just stock sitting there. So that's why the restocks are, you know, they sell out. My suggestion is, if you're interested, then order now. And if you miss out, then just shoot me an email so that I have an idea of, you know, how urgently I should do another restock. I try to do one every few months. And yeah, I'm just really happy that people are enjoying these sets as much as I am. The goal of all of these is to make playing with your watercolors, swatching them, mixing them more fun and kind of inviting and, you know, aesthetically pleasing. And yeah, create these really pretty pages in your sketchbook that, you know, just make you happy. So the tube is from the second stamp set, Sketchbook Essentials. These I have talked about extensively in the past on my channel. I will link you to those videos and the listing in my shop so you can see all the details. I want today's video to focus on the new set and kind of show you what's included and what is the purpose behind it. It's a little bit different, and I think it's a perfect accompanying set to the existing ones, which is always my goal. I don't want to repeat things. I just want to add to them. So they would all work beautifully together in your sketchbooks. So let's start with how it looks. When you get your stamp set, it's going to come like this. And actually, it's going to be a little bit different. I made some changes to one stamp. This was the first batch. I always order stamps to, you know, there's designing, there's an idea, and then there's how the stamp actually works. So I always order samples for myself so I can test them and make sure they are perfect. So this was the first run, and I actually did make a little change, and I'll explain why. The issue is that there are, I think, in the restock, which I ordered a lot of these, but there are, I think, 2 remaining sets from this first batch, so they look like this. If you happen to receive such a set, it's very easy to modify it to the new edition because I only made one change. But you can absolutely send me an email with a picture of your set, and I will send you the correct version, and you'll just have a double because all of the other stamps here are exactly the same. I just made one little change, which I'll explain to you because it just has to do with how the stamp works. So I do apologize if you get this set. It was my mistake that I didn't think fast enough to remove the first batch. It was just like a sample batch, and I have most of them, but a couple I missed, so they are still in the stock room. So if you do get them, I apologize, but it is, you know, every stamp here works perfectly. And if you still want to, I will absolutely send you a new set without any additional cost, of course. So if you happen to win the lottery of the first edit, let me know. Okay, so this set is called the Prismatic Watercolors, and this was inspired by kind of vintage color charts that I saw like online from older catalogs. And yeah, it was just beautiful. In older art supplies catalogs, before they had cameras, they illustrated all of the supplies. And yeah, and I just found that to be very, very inspiring. So unlike the other kind of artwork that you get in the other stamp sets, here you can see in this set, it's basically what you see here is exactly what you see here, only I painted it to kind of give you an idea of how it would look painted. In this case, I did something a little bit different to show you how this works. So as you can see, these images are not the same. I just had to make things smaller and adjust them so they would all fit. And I'll explain to you the idea. So the first stamp that we have is this one here, and let's zoom in. And it is aimed to have a quick reference. So in your sketchbook, you could stamp this one time or a couple of times, depending how many colors you want. And it's just a quick little reference that you can add the names of the colors and do a little blob here, which I really like it. You can also use it if you wanted to do like a gradient. So you could put here the color in full intensity and then have it fade into white or, you know, clear. So you could do that. But the original thing was almost like a catalog, apothecary type of thing, which I really, really like. And there are also two stamps here that read, let me see if I played a lot with this set in my sketchbook. Okay, so you can see here, you have these two stamps which say swatch information, and they fit perfectly on top. And yeah, that's the goal of this one. So this was a slightly different version of the original set where I made these pens, which, you know, you can use to stamp as to represent your pens, but also it works as a swatch. So this time I made like a dedicated swatch stamp, which has two lines at the top or the bottom. You can turn it whichever way you want, and one line on the other side. And this is great for swatching and adding the information, so the manufacturer, the color, and then I chose to add here the pigments. Of course, you can add more information if you want. There's another space here above the swatch, which you can also use. It's meant to be, you can see it here, it's meant to be compact, so it doesn't take too much space. I recommend using kind of a fine liner to write all the information so you can get more in it. And it's really perfect for swatching, which is what I did in the last video with my favorite kind of superstar colors. So this is how I would use this stamp. Then we have this one here, which I really like, this one here. And the goal of this stamp is to kind of give you a quick idea of color transitions and mixtures between a few colors. So instead of going like full on mixing and, you know, filling those areas, which is what this stamp is great for, this is kind of, you know, I would put this on the side of my sketchbook page, and just to give me an idea of the color scheme and how the colors mix. So that's how I would use this stamp. These two are, I think, the most exciting ones. So the way that they come in the set is half a circle. The reason I did just half a circle is because I wanted it to be big, so you can have a really nice sized swatch and color wheel in your sketchbook. Of course, you can also use the quarter wheel from my previous set, but this one has like a few lines in it, and it's just a little bit less sketchy. It's a little bit more, you know, simple and like symmetrical, which I know a lot of you wanted and asked for, so there it is. And the goal is, of course, you can stamp it as it is, but the goal, like the way I intended for it to use, which of course you don't have to, is to create a full circle. And there's also a line stamp here that you can use to divide it to as many slices as you'd like. And you can write the names in that top row here, which is a little bit smaller, or outside of the circle. But the goal is to create those large, nice color wheels, which I love. They look great. And yeah, this is just a different variation from the original set. It has more lines, it's more symmetrical, it's cleaner. And you have here this separate line, which you can control how many colors you're using on your color wheel. Making color wheels is a great way to get to know your paints, decide on a color story that excites you, see how they blend, see how they mix. You can do glazes here, you can do mixes, whatever you want. And I really like, again, adding kind of script, you know, adding the written information. I just think it looks good, and of course it's very helpful. Okay, and the last stamp, which gave me the most trouble, but I really love it, is, I'm calling this the gradient triangle. And again, I only included a third of this triangle so that you could create a larger shape, and you know, we would get just like more images in one stamp set. So basically what you want to do is you want to stamp this stamp 3 times like this. And originally, as you can see, I designed it with these lines on the side. Then I got the set and I realized that it was just, even though I did my best to make sure everything was symmetrical, it was just a bit tricky to line them up. So in the new design, in the sets that you will receive, these lines are gone, and it makes it much easier to create this triangle without those lines getting messed up. So I'll show you, we're going to do this together. For myself, what I did was I just cut mine. You can see I just cut this area of the stamp, but yours will look like this when you get it. And yeah, it's really simple. So you'll stamp it first time like this, then you would stamp it like this, and then you would stamp it like this. And then you get this really nice triangle, which you can use for color mixtures. And I particularly like it for glazes. So you can do another glaze in the outer lines. Like here you could do 2 more glazes, and here you can do 1 more. And this also gives you an idea of how the colors look with that extra intensity, you know, second glaze and third glaze, and also how the mixtures look. So I just love the look of this. It gives me all those, you know, vintage vibes, which I love. Now, these are always like, these images are always the main focus of my sets. But when you have these large shapes, you always have some space in between. And that's why I also like to add the words. And this time I added, let's take a look. So we have watercolor palette. I used kind of vintage inspired fonts, and I really, really like how they turned out. Here we have the word prismatic, again with this like vintage font. And here we have watercolor swatch information. And as I said, the swatch information fits perfectly above this little box. But of course you don't have to use it with that box. You can use it independently. And then we have another vintage font saying color wheel. And then here we have color chart in this script font, which I really like. So this is the set. Let's do some stamping. Oh, I wanted to tell you also the measurements because people always ask me. So let's see. We have here the largest stamp. The longest one is probably this one here, and it measures 11, almost 11 and a half centimeters. And then this one here are half circle, not the radius, twice the radius. I don't know how these words are in English, I'm sorry. Oh, that's also kind of the same height as this one. So a bit more than 11 centimeters, and it is about 5.5 centimeters tall. And then our triangle is 13 centimeters long. Now, I like to use, for this stamp, I like to use this longer block, which measures 5 centimeters on about 20 centimeters. And this block works really, really well with pretty much all the stamps in the Sketchbook Essential set, because this set has a few longer stamps for the brushes and the pens. So this is perfect for this set. You can fit all of the stamps on this. Here you could also fit all of the stamps on this set. I prefer to stamp the smaller words with a smaller block, but it's absolutely not a must. So you could get by with just this. Now the circle stamp will go a little bit over, but I don't find that to be a problem. I usually just like push it a little bit with my finger, and yeah, because I don't have a bigger block. I have this from Fiskars, which as you can see is quite big, but I don't like it. It's, you know, you might like it. I hardly ever use it. So I just use this one. So let's take a look. I'm going to use a set that I already used. So this stays new. And let's see with the circle stamp. So the way these things work, these clear stamps, if you're not familiar, is you peel them off the backing and you put them on your block. And if the block and the stamp are clean, then it just sticks to one another. And then you grab your ink. For all of these watercolor adventures, you want to use water resistant ink, because you don't want everything to get messed up when you add water to it. My two favorite inks are, for this purpose, are the VersaFine Onyx Black. This is a super, super black, juicy ink that once it's dry, you have to wait for it to dry. It is water resistant. This is usually what I use for the demonstrations because it shows really well. So you want to tap it on your stamp, not wait too long, and stamp. And I'm just going to give a little push here. And there you go. So this is what I like to use for the demos because it's like so black. It's very easy to see. But for my own uses, I actually prefer this one. I'll talk to you in a second. I touched my finger. So you want to be careful. I just don't want my head stuck in the camera. But you want to line it up, these circles, and stamp. You would do a better job than I did. And then you can remove it and place it back on the stamp set. Try to keep them kind of clean and in place. If they get too dirty, they don't stick as well, which you can just like clean them with water. But yeah. So with the stick here, the stick stamp, you would just put it, I'm gonna cover my mistake almost. I am not a good stamper. I like the sketchy, messy look, but these stamps are clear, so you can see what you're doing. You can take your time and get it nice and aligned. So this is the circle stamp. That is how I would use it. Okay, so I really like the StazOn Solvent ink pad in Stone Gray. I just like it. It feels more like pencil to me, which I personally like. So I'll just show you. Let's take this stamp. And it also has this really nice smell. So you see it's not as black, obviously, because it's not black. But I prefer that look. I just don't use it on videos because it doesn't show as well. But in my own sketchbook, I usually prefer to use this over the super intense, the onyx black one. So let's see. You do have to move fast, especially with the StazOn, because it just dries and then you won't get anything stamped. Also keep in mind that your stamping quality will be affected by the surface that you use. If you're using rough paper, the stamping might not turn up clear. If you're using smooth paper or hot pressed watercolor paper, it'll be easier to get like that perfect stamped image. This is kind of textured paper, and as you can see, I have no problem with getting a really nice image, but it might affect your results, so just be aware of that. I usually stamp in my sketchbook, and having like a few pages underneath usually just gives the stamp that little bit of give, like a little bit of that cushioned surface, so you get a good impression. But yeah, all these things will affect your stamping result. I want to take a minute and just show you again how to use this stamp, because I found that this one has kind of the steepest learning curve, and you can fix everything with a black pen, but if you just pay attention when you're stamping, it should be fine. So I would start with the base, and when you're stamping the second time, you want to kind of take your time and line things up as best you can. If you stamp this a little bit too open, then the third stamping will be a bit off. So probably that second stamping is the critical one. And then with the third one, again, you just want to take your time and line up as best you can. And after a few times, you'll just get the hang of it. And trust me, I put my husband to the test, and he has no idea about stamping. So it might need, I'll show you what I mean when, if you kind of do this without paying attention, then let's say you do the first one, that's the easy one, right? And my paper is just rough, so I kind of have to press hard to get a perfectly clean image. So if I don't really pay attention and I kind of just stamp it a bit more opened angle, then this looks fine. I mean, I would need a few corrections here, but then when I come and stamp it the third time, it's going to be hard to line it up. So again, this is not a problem to fix. You can just go with a black pen and fix it. But if you just pay attention on that second stamped image, you will avoid this, which again is not irreparable. I mean, that looks to me just as good. The whole idea of this stamp set is, you know, have that bit of vintage feel. So I'm not a perfectionist, and yeah, just pay attention. The stamps are clear which means you can see exactly where you're stamping. So take your time, do this slowly. And I also wanted to show you something cool that, I'm sorry about my fingers, it's just when I start stamping, that's what happens. I just wanted to show you something cool. So I used 2 of the stamps, the watercolor color wheel, and I stamped them on a piece of watercolor paper, but you don't have to actually use watercolor paper. And then I just happened to have this tab punch. So I used it to punch a tab. You don't need a punch for it. I just have it from my scrapbooking days. You can hand cut this without a problem. And now I have this really cute tab which I can attach to my sketchbook, logbook, reference book, whatever you want to call it. I can either attach it like this with a stapler. You can run it through your sewing machine if you like the look. And if you don't want it sticking out, you can also add it like this. The nice thing about putting it like, if you put it like sticking out, you could do, for example, a sketchbook that it has like a swatch area. So you could use the swatch information stamps and do a tab, and then you could do watercolor wheels section in your sketchbook, logbook, reference book, and mark it with a tab, which I think is a great idea, and I'll probably do that to my own logbook, which is here. I use this little book from Cuddy. I really love it. The paper is awful, but it has so many pages, so it's really, really perfect for just, this is pre-stamp sets, and yeah, so it's really, really great for keeping. This is post stamp set, so you can do all of these and then attach the tabs. That would look fantastic, or you can put them at the top here. I'm definitely going to do that. You have an idea for a product and how you're going to use it, but then when you actually have it and start playing with it, sometimes I get so inspired and just the ideas just flow. You could just punch it and stamp it. Let's do that. Color chart. If you're using watercolor paper, that means you can add watercolors like I have here from this cute little sketch. So of course that's nice. And let's add another word. So sorry about my horribly dirty fingers. That's how it is. I'm messy. It's a mess. So, could have these tabs, or we can do, let's do this one like this. I'll show you. You don't need any punches. You can do watercolor palette and take some scissors. Whoa, don't fling them. And you can try to mimic that tab shape, or you could just do some free hand cutting. Grab your sketchbook, and then you can just attach it like this, or, you know, if you want it to stick out. I love using my sewing machine, but my sewing machine doesn't always love thick paper. So, you know, use it at your own risk. But of course you can also use glue. You can do, if you punch 2 pieces, I'll show you. So let's punch one. What I have done in other sketchbooks is you can punch 2 and then just sandwich them and use some nice glue if you don't want to use a stapler. So I would just glue them together, and then you have a nice tab on both sides of your page. So this is a really great way of using the word stamps and kind of keep your sketchbook or reference book or logbook organized. I'm definitely going to do that. Of course, if you don't have the stamps, you can just do this with your own handwriting. That's totally cool. Everything I do here, you can sketch by yourself, like on your own. I just find the stamps make it easier, faster, cleaner looking, besides the ink on my fingers. But besides that, the goal is really to just encourage you to play with your watercolors. That's my main goal for this, to have fun, to learn how they work, how they behave. I hope you will enjoy this set as much as I have, playing with it and creating your swatches, your color charts, all those fun things. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, you can leave them below. And yeah, the stamps are in my shop. I'll see you soon in another video. Take care. Bye bye.